Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I am your host, Joe Zolo. It is officially the end of the 2020 NFL season. As you may notice, I am in a new background for what seems like the third time in a full month. Settled in a new apartment. This will look way better sooner rather than later. Going to be hanging up a lot of stuff to make this look cool for all you people watching. Joining me, as always, Joshua Hudson and Ryan Weiss. No guests this week. Had a couple complications, but we are back. We are here for the next 4 weeks. We have a loaded lineup of guests, so be sure to stay tuned because we'll be telling you who those will be very, very soon. But today, going to recap the Super Bowl, obviously the biggest game in sports every single year, as well as looking towards free agency, mostly focusing on the coaches and how some of these players in free agency may react and maybe want to flock towards a guy like Robert Salah or a guy who's the coach of the Chargers now? Brandon something?
Staley.
Brandon Staley, thank you. So, guys might want to flock there, as well as discussing how guys on those current teams are actually going to react to those new head coaches and how that may work for the better or for the worse in some of these cases. But starting off here with obviously the biggest game of the year in the 2020 or 2021, I guess, Super Bowl game, where I wonder who said Patrick Mahomes wasn't going to have a good game and throw 2 interceptions. It's weird because 2 other people on the show said, "You're a fucking moron. How has he looked this entire playoffs?" Huh?
I still stand by you being a moron, but
I mean that's fine. So. You can stand by that. But and look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I guessed that Mahomes wouldn't throw a touchdown. I had him for 2 touchdowns, 2 picks in a relatively mediocre game. Wow, was this bad?
I still just don't think we're dealing with Peyton Manning in the playoffs bad. The circumstances were stacked against him.
Sure. Well, and here's the thing, too.
They have like 4 starting offensive linemen out. And I mean, I brought that up last week that, losing Eric Fisher was going to be big for them. And that was big.
And nobody could catch. Where did that come from?
Dropped so many. That one pass where he's literally just like floating horizontally and like he got it off and it was a perfect spiral. That hit Darrell Williams right in his face.
That was one of the best throws I think I've ever seen in the NFL. But I don't want to take anything away from Joe's prediction because you did call it. You knew what was going to happen and you said it was going to be because of the Tampa Bay defense. And I'm not going to make excuses. Kansas City, I don't even want to say they lost that game, and please miss me with the refs cost them that game. Tom Brady handled his business. That was ridiculous. That was a clinic. And that's what this might have been actually the best thing to happen to Patrick Mahomes, because to see what someone like Tom Brady did in the playoffs to what is a great team is going to hopefully inspire him to grow to be greater because he has so many years left. So
to your point, Ryan, about the refs, I'm not going to sit here and say that the refs cost Kansas City that game, but when you look at some of those calls in the first half and how they weren't calling very similar situations in the second half, those types of egregious calls in the first half, they change the mentality of the defense throughout the rest of that game, and that really does affect how you ultimately play. So while it may not have directly cost them, it indirectly influenced the game.
Yeah.
When you lose 31-9, the refs shouldn't even be in the fucking conversation.
I mean, I'm sure we all saw the tweets, but being from Northeast Ohio, the Cleveland Browns would like to talk to the Chiefs about refs costing games right now.
And it's like that one, the Browns have a legitimate argument because 1, it was unbelievably egregious, that miss. And 2, they lost by a score. Kansas City lost by 22 points. They needed 3 touchdowns, 3 successful onside kicks, 2 extra points, and a 2-point conversion just to tie the game. Like, it wasn't remotely close at all. There was a crazy stat that I heard. Patrick Mahomes scrambled for over 400 yards in that game. That's absurd.
Yeah, pushing 500, actually. Like, he covered, 497 yards while scrambling away from pressure.
Crazy.
It was unreal.
Utterly crazy. But here's a few things. There were very, very bad calls by the refs in that game. Ones that they missed and ones that they 100% should not have called. Regardless, it wouldn't have helped the Chiefs. I'm sorry. It wouldn't help the Chiefs. There were 2 boneheaded penalties. Matthew and Chris Jones just doing dumb shit. And that Tom Brady told Ryan Jensen, push Chris Jones a little bit after the play. He's going to get heated and throw a punch at you. Because he told David Andrews the exact same thing when he played on New England, and you saw that. Brady had a huge smirk on his face. Chris Jones is a moron. He's the best player on that defense, and he was a dumbass and cost his team that drive because ultimately Tampa scored on that drive. It's just, it blows my mind. The coaching, I understand. Andy Reid's going to go down as one of the best coaches. His team, wildly unprepared for that game. Wildly unprepared for that game.
See, I don't. It's so uncharacteristic for an Andy Reid team to not be prepared, and I think that's where the offensive line comes in. To where, how do you prepare for having Swiss cheese in front of you? Like, it's just ridiculous.
So sure, from that point, I'm more so talking the defense couldn't stop anything. Steve Spagnuolo is also to blame, but also the discipline for your team in that big of a game. You just like boneheaded penalties. Like, yes, some of the PIs were bad calls. But there was just some boneheaded penalties where you sat there and said, that's all on coaching. Boneheaded penalties are all coaching. So, and that comes down on Andy Reid.
Yep.
And the Chiefs are not in trouble. And that's a question I wanted to bring up is
that might come up later in the show.
Yeah. Well, we've obviously seen teams have a Super Bowl hangover where, the losing team, I mean, the Falcons are the epitome of the Super Bowl hangover at this point.
It's still going on.
Yeah. They can't get out of their rut. I'm not talking like a Falcons, and we know that the Chiefs will probably be back in the playoffs next year, but they're not going to go 15-1 again. Where do you guys kind of see this team landing next year? Do they have like a fall off, or do you see them back at like 14-2, no problem next season?
Yeah. Go ahead, Josh.
You started talking, so I was going to defer to you, but I mean, look at the AFC West, right? Who's really going to compete with them right now?
If Brandon Staley, who we'll talk about in a little bit, can get a hold of that defense.
Chargers aren't healthy. They are never healthy, ever.
Josh, if Keenan Allen is out there, it doesn't matter. It does not matter.
I do think the Chargers could be good, but I think the Chiefs win their division easily. I think they probably win the conference easily. So.
I don't think there's any doubt the Chiefs may win the division at 11-5. Like, I don't think there's even a chance.
I mean, right now, for me, the biggest competition that they have in the AFC is Buffalo.
Oh God, and that's not even competition.
And you can say that as a Patriots fan that's always going to look down on Buffalo. That's fine. Josh Allen took a huge leap this year.
A giant leap.
Still good. Yeah. Okay, their defense is still good. I think it's more overrated than anything, but they have a good, sturdy defense. They need to make some improvements. They have to learn how to stop the run, which I don't understand. You spend a top 10 pick on a defensive tackle, maybe get a guy that can stop the run. Just throwing that out there, Ed Oliver. But Tre'Davious White is a lockdown corner. They need some improvements on the back end there. They've got some. I think they have solid safeties, but they don't have a world beater. They don't have somebody that is super talented on that back end, like a Tyrann Mathieu, like a Jamal Adams. Some of these guys that are in the upper echelon there.
I would beg to differ. I put Jordan Poyer in the top 5 for safeties in the league.
I disagree wholeheartedly.
Okay, well, you can go suck one, but Jordan Poyer is a top 5 safety in the league. And Micah Hyde is just old. Micah Hyde was great in his prime, but he's just old at this point. So I'll agree with you on Micah Hyde has fallen off a cliff because he used to be great when he was younger, but now
and Taron Johnson sucks. They need somebody that can cover the slot.
I mean, they're really
every corner in the NFL sucks.
Yeah, every corner.
We know this,
but legitimately though, like we had the best slot corner in the NFL 2 years ago, Desmond King. The fuck's he doing now? He's terrible.
Yeah, and he was traded midseason to Tennessee, and
he did nothing. So it's like, I mean, you look at slot corners. Can you even name me a solid slot corner in the NFL right now? Like, I can't think of one off the top of my head where I'm like, okay, he shut down a few guys. Like, you can.
They just need to move Chris Harris back to the slot. He was so much better covering the slot than he was on the outside.
He wasn't good during the season, but does Roby Coleman play the slot? Because he was great in the playoffs.
Roby Coleman, yeah, he's with Philly.
Yeah, he plays
he's on a 1-year deal there, but
yeah, he's better in the slot.
Yeah, he's definitely better in the slot. I agree.
But getting off topic here, the question at hand was, does Kansas City regress at all? And I think they do. I think they dropped to somewhere around 12-4, 11-5. Listen, 15-1 is utterly absurd. But
we talked about it previously. This year was all about continuity.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
It was you had the best chance to go forward when you didn't have a whole bunch of new faces to bring into the fold. It took Tampa a while to get going. And then they added AB after week 9. And they really didn't start cooking until week 13.
Yeah.
Antonio Brown never actually got off the ground until, I guess the play, but I mean, if you want to count the Super Bowl because he caught a touchdown, but he never really had a solid game outside of week 17.
Because he wasn't the number one option.
Well, he wasn't the number one option, but also week 17, people say, well, he had 100 yards. They fed him the ball because if he hit 50 receptions or whatever, he got a bonus. But you're right. I mean, the only new face on Kansas City was Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Le'Veon Bell. Like, those are the only two new.
And Bell I don't believe played a single snap in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, Bell was non-existent.
I think they grabbed Bell to make sure someone else didn't get him.
It really does
truly feels that way. Yeah,
it really does. Yeah.
I mean, it cost them next to nothing to do it. So
it was a voice in the locker room for a young player. I mean, they basically did the same thing last year with Shady, bringing him in. Shady didn't play a single snap in the Super Bowl last year. Didn't play a single snap
or this year.
And has 2 championships. So
how about Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette? Those guys looked really good.
We'll talk about Leonard Fournette a little bit later, but that boy's getting paid this offseason.
Yeah, I hesitantly took him in a startup dynasty league as my 3rd running back, and I am very excited moving forward if he continues that. But there will forever and never be a debate. It's set in stone. Tom Brady's the best quarterback to ever play the game. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Tom Brady is better than every single NFL franchise.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's stupid.
It really is.
It's just stupid. It's stupid. He has more Super Bowl rings than any. It's just, it's utterly ridiculous. Yep. But I mean, hey, I'm happy. Congratulations to him. My dad, my brother, and I were utterly ecstatic every time, the Bucs scored a touchdown. It did hurt, the Brady to Gronkowski connection twice, seeing that. But obviously, we said it on our prop bet show. Whatever team won, the quarterback was getting MVP. Brady got MVP. He has 5 Super Bowl MVPs.
You could have made the argument for Fournette in this game too.
Well, my dad was saying if Gronk caught a 3rd touchdown, he was saying, has there been anybody that has scored 3 touchdowns in a Super Bowl, let alone a tight end that has scored 3 touchdowns? Obviously, no tight end has ever done that. Yeah. Well, and he sat there and said that could be something where if Gronk scores his 3rd, he might have gotten it. And I'm like, yeah, but who's throwing him the football? They're going to give Brady MVP. It doesn't like Damien
co-MVPs. I know they've done that before, if I'm not mistaken.
You're going to give Tom Brady a co-MVP. Malcolm Butler won them the game against the Seahawks, and they said, here you go, Brady. Like, and Brady even knew. He freaking gave the car to Butler. Like, you're the real. I mean, again, Brady didn't need the damn car, but he gave the car.
If you really want to talk about the real MVP in this game, that's Todd Bowles. That dude called the game of his life.
And hold on, you want to know what they say? You want to know how many times the Bucs blitzed them? 4.
Yeah, wow. Not 4 times. At all. They just got so much pressure.
Well, yeah, you have such a dominant front 7, and you can play any of them on the line, like we talked about.
Not even front 7, front 4.
Well, what I'm saying though is where you can move White and Barrett down to the line to just putting them there with Sue and Villa.
But the other thing too is, and we've said, and obviously the Bucs had the personnel to do it, and we said this in the Super Bowl show. How do you beat Kansas City? You rush 4 or 3, and you drop 7 or 8. And what happened? They played high-low on Tyreek Hill, like I said. Tyreek Hill was shut out. When Levante David was man-to-man on Travis Kelce, he shut him down for the most part. I was very surprised at that.
I knew David wouldn't be able to keep up with him the whole game, which is why you saw Kelce's numbers inflate towards the end, because they had to throw. Yeah. And David's not going to be able to do that for enough.
Well, but for most of the game, Kelce, he wasn't getting a ton of yards after the catch.
Everything was contested. Right on him. That's it. David was right on him.
Yeah, he was right on him the entire time. Which, by the way, I'm not big on IDP guys, but Levante David has got to be one of the most, if not the most underrated defensive player in the NFL.
He is the most underrated defensive player in the NFL.
And I don't think it's particularly close, to be honest with you.
I was just about to say, I am one of the guys I'm happiest for is Devonte David, because ever since he's come in the league,
I was going to say, I remember the year that he came out with Myles Jack, and everybody was like, "Oh, these are two top 10 linebackers."
No.
Both of them fell to the second round.
No. Levante David's older than Myles Jack. He's been
they came out the exact same year, dude. Look it up.
What
they
year
came
did
out
Myles
the exact
Jack
same
come out?
year. Myles Jack and Levante David were drafted in the same draft class. And both of them were talked about as top 5, top 10 picks because they were fast, rangy linebackers. And not a single one of them went in the first round. Now you're seeing the complete opposite. These fast, sideline to sideline linebackers, a la Devin White, are going early in drafts.
Yeah, Devin White is just... Devin White's absurd.
Yeah, Levante David was Devin White before Devin White came into the league.
Levante David came out 4 years before Myles Jack.
He didn't.
Yes, he did, Josh. He's been in the league forever. He's in his 30s. So I said I was super excited for Levante David because he deserves. He's been a top 10 middle linebacker ever since he's been in the league.
Yeah, Levante David was almost the last pick of the second round in 2012.
Thank you.
Myles Jack was 2016.
Yeah, stupid.
There's another linebacker I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I'll look it up. You guys keep talking.
Josh, there's a reason you don't play IDP. There's a reason. But there's the takeaways from the Super Bowl. Kansas City is going to be fine. Tom Brady will never be dethroned as the greatest of all time. Mahomes would have to win 10 Super Bowls for that to happen. He'll never be dethroned, and Tampa's still in a prime spot to win next year because their defense isn't going anywhere. All right, into the new coaching hires now. I'm going to run through all these, and of course we can break it down how they'll help or hurt fantasy players. Starting here with Robert Salah, former 49ers defensive coordinator. He's going to the New York Jets. Arthur Smith, former Titans offensive coordinator, going to be the head coach of the Falcons. Brandon Staley, going to be the head coach of the Chargers, former Rams defensive coordinator. He's not moving too far. Urban Meyer, the former Ohio State University head coach, going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Dan Campbell, former Saints assistant to the Detroit Lions. Nick Serrani, the Colts offensive coordinator, will now head up the duties in Philadelphia. And David Culley, the former Ravens wide receiver coach, heading to the Houston Texans, that mess of a franchise. Let's start probably with the biggest name.
Actually, hold on. I want to throw out the linebacker thing because Josh, I think I know.
Jalen Smith, that's what it was.
Oh, I thought you were going to. Oh, that's with.
That's what it was. I was thinking of.
Listen to the linebackers from 2012.
Is Kuechly in that class?
Luke Kuechly.
Yeah.
Dante Hightower, Michael Kendricks, Bobby Wagner, Levante David, Olivier Vernon, Demario Davis.
Hey, hold on. You want? I'll throw someone in there. Chandler Jones was in that draft too. But he won't be listed there.
No, I think he's listed as a D lineman on this.
Yeah,
that's why.
Tahir Whitehead, Danny Trevathan. I mean, this is insane.
That's a solid class. That's a solid class for linebacker. It's a good linebacker.
Let's
class.
get to the coaches. Yeah.
All right, so let's go to Robert Salah. He's a guy that a lot of people looked at and said, he was probably 1A on most people's lists to be a head coach. Goes to the Jets. Adam Gase finally gone. Let's just play with the pieces they currently have. We're not assuming Deshaun Watson is going to be a New York Jet. We're going to assume that Sam Darnold is coming back. Sam Darnold's going to be your quarterback for the 2021 season if you're a New York Jets fan. So you look at that. Rashad Perryman still isn't on a contract. They are losing a lot of players. Their running back situation isn't great. Their O-line situation is decent. Their defense, it's a mess of a franchise. Is there anybody, let's say Rashad Perryman comes back, is there anybody on this team you're looking at in fantasy football, Ryan?
Absolutely. Give me every bit of Jamison Crowder in an offense that tends to throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage, which is where Crowder just excels. Because I think this is going to be very similar to the San Francisco offense. I think the run pass numbers are basically going to be exactly what we saw from an Adam Gase offense, but I think they're going to be more efficient with these short passing routes, and Crowder is just going to feast. I think you could be looking at another potential, think about how good Crowder was at the beginning of the season. I don't see him taking a step back from that. So I think he's going to be sitting at 120 targets easy, probably more than that. I'm very excited to own Jamison Crowder next season.
So quickly before Josh, you go, and I'll get your thoughts on this question. Off the back of that, how does that hurt Denzel Mims if Ryan believes that they're going to be a lot of, behind the line of scrimmage, run more of a San Francisco style offense? Josh, how does that kind of hurt Denzel Mims, or are you thinking the opposite?
I don't think it hurts Mims at all, and I'm actually the complete opposite on Ryan. I don't even expect Jamison Crowder to be a Jet next year. They have roughly $68 million in cap space. Cutting Jamison Crowder frees up another 10. They're going to bring in weapons this year. They have a coach that I think a lot of the players in the NFL like and that will want to play with. If they end up moving off of Sam Darnold and taking a quarterback a la Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, whoever that's going to be at 2, I think you want to give him safety valves. And if you have the chance to bring in someone like Juju over Jamison Crowder, I think you do that, even if they're roughly making the same amount of money. But for Mims, he could easily play that Brandon Ayuk role. And we saw Brandon Ayuk really pop this year when they didn't have a tight end to throw to. And as much as I love Chris Herndon, they don't have a tight end to throw to in New York for the Jets. So I don't think the tight end is going to be a position that LaFleur works as much into his offense as we've seen with some of, like with Matt and Tunyon and even Shanahan with Kittle. I personally would much rather buy Mims in redraft at a cheaper price than Crowder, personally. But, to each their own, really.
And something just to throw out there, we're going to talk receivers in 3 weeks with Eric Moody of The Atlantic. He's going to come on, join the show to preview the wide receiver free agencies. But one guy, just again, going off of Ryan's theory, if they're going to run more of that behind the line of scrimmage, the San Francisco style offense, if they sign Curtis Samuel, he may be a high-end wide receiver too at that point. If you want to talk about a guy that's probably going to excel in behind the line of scrimmage, the dude's a lightning bolt.
Yeah, and I think that's really what
quick and shifty.
These guys that, they're these sort of like quick twitch athletes, so to speak, right? Yeah. And you're going to have some of them in this draft class. And the Jets have 2 first-round picks. They've got a bevy of picks throughout the entire draft. This is what Joe Douglas has done. He's really stripped down this team because they need to improve. They have holes everywhere. They have one solid line piece in Mekhi Becton. And outside of that, there ain't much on offense. P. Ryan was a dart throw at running back. He was hurt most of this year. Obviously, they moved on from Bell. So P. Ryan might get first crack, but I also wouldn't be shocked if they either sign a running back to a cheap 1-year deal, and I'm looking at Kenyon Drake in terms of that, because that feels like a Joe Douglas type move. Instead of spending a first or second round pick on a running back, he's the type of guy that would take somebody in the 3rd or 4th round, like he did last year with P. Ryan, and then see how they fit into the rotation. But if you can bring in an established veteran on a 1-year deal for, say, $5 million, kind of similar to what Miami did last year with Jordan Howard, and if your rookies beat him out, they beat him out, so be it. And it's not wasted money because you have at least a voice in the locker room. I think Kenyon Drake can be that because he didn't do anything this year in Arizona to really earn a long-term contract, as much as I like Kenyon Drake.
Josh, you have the demon. Unplug, replug. For those new, Josh's demon pops up now and again.
Yeah.
He inherited it from stepmom Lauren. So
it's usually when he decides to down talk Jamison Crowder, which is just a ridiculous shit.
Yeah. But the Jets, they're top 3 in cap space. With Salah, if they're pursuing and they want to go out and get Deshaun Watson, they have the money to give him weapons. They 100% have the money to do that.
And that's something I was going to bring up later on is if you're getting Deshaun Watson, why do you not bring Will Fuller?
Will Fuller. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. You put him on the outside, Denzel Mims on the other. You've got speed. Mims has size and speed. You're giving him the options that he needs. This is what he had in Houston last year with speed on the outside with Cooks and Fuller, and the offense worked great. They couldn't stop anybody on defense. Salah is not going to have that problem. San Francisco had huge amount of injuries last year, and they still had a top 5 total defense last year.
And you have Jamison Crowder in the slot.
or white chocolate Braxton Berrios also backing up. But they
and he's a lot cheaper than Crowder, so
he's a lot cheaper. They have the money to get it done. They definitely have the money to get it done. From another team We're from one team in the top 3 in salary cap to another team with the top 3 in salary cap. The Jaguars have hired Urban Meyer, who's been out of coaching for, I believe, 3 years since his last stint with Ohio State. I mean, there were a lot of bad head coaching signings, in my opinion. The only two I really like are Salah and Brandon Staley, but Urban Meyer just
unsurprising that you like the defensive head coach hires.
Well, I'll quickly explain to you. Arthur Smith, he just seems so vanilla to me. I'll tell you Urban Meyer in a second. Dan Campbell is a rah-rah guy. He looks like he has zero plan. Nick Serrani, what? Like, come on now. And David Culley, we all know that the Texans just hired the first
I will
guy
get on to that one here shortly.
Yeah,
I don't think a lot of people are going to like my opinion on that one.
Yeah, we all know the Texans just hired the first guy that would take the job. But Urban Meyer, the dude has never had to build an actual football team. He's been handed the best recruits in the country every single year. Like, recruiting is way easier than working with a salary cap and actually building an NFL team. And there was a joke going around: if you don't like us at 1-15, don't love us when we're 4-12. And I think that's perfect, because Urban Meyer, I'm sorry, he's not going to turn this franchise around. I would be genuinely shocked if he does. Go ahead, Ryan.
It's a lot more than just Urban Meyer, though. That it's going to look like an entirely new team than what we've seen out of them, because you're also starting with Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence does have the kind of talent that he could come in and turn a team around. Lawrence might make, I don't disagree with you. I don't know that Urban Meyer belongs in the NFL, but Lawrence might be the kind of guy who's going to make Urban Meyer look better than he actually is.
Tim Tebow did.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally don't think Urban Meyer is all that great of a head coach. I think his offenses have always been very gadget-esque. They're tailor-made for college. That type of shit's not going to work in the NFL.
Yep.
And, they're bringing in Darrell Bevel. There's going to be their offensive coordinator in Jacksonville. Spent the last 2 years in Detroit. He was with Seattle for 6 years as well. They don't pass the football. They run it. That's it. And you bring in someone like Trevor Lawrence, you need to learn how to throw the football. And I believe their passing game coordinator is Brian Schottenheimer, which I think is pretty comical, considering that they wouldn't let Russ cook in Seattle for the last 8 weeks of the season. But, they have the offensive pieces. Like, they have some good skill players there. You've got DJ Shark. You've got Laviska Shenault. Chris Conley is okay. He's a solid depth piece. Colin Johnson's a decent-looking rookie who's tall, can kind of get up for those jump balls. James Robinson we know of. Cam Robinson, their left tackle, is a free agent. I'm curious to see if they bring him back, because I know he's suffered some injuries over the last couple of years, hasn't really been that reliable. But they have the foundations there on offense where if you put in a good quarterback like Trevor Lawrence, who if he's able to come in and kind of be what Joe Burrow was for Cincy or Herbert for the Chargers, he could make some waves, and they can compete in this division, because we know Houston's not competing. Indy's they've got a good team. They're going to need a quarterback.
Yep.
Now, does Ryan Tannehill potentially fall off with a new OC?
So I'm gonna throw this out there, and because interdivision trades tend to never happen.
Yeah,
very rarely, especially big interdivision trades.
And you know where I'm going with this. If you're the Houston Texans, would you entertain an offer? Deshaun Watson, Deshaun Watson for the first overall pick, Jacksonville's first rounder next year, 2 second-round picks in 2021, and a pick in 2021 and a pick in 2022, and Miles Jack. You're sitting there, you're taking Trevor Lawrence at 1, so it's technically a quarterback for quarterback trade. So you're doing that. You get 3 picks on top of it. Well, technically 4 picks, but 3 picks on top of it outside of Trevor Lawrence. And then you get that young defensive guy that you want. And Jacksonville doesn't really have anybody in the secondary. Maybe CJ Henderson. Maybe
they just took him though.
Yeah, I know they just took him, but again, Would you trade CJ Anderson for Deshaun Watson? 1,000 times over. So I don't think it's going to happen. But if Houston wanted to, they could go and get Trevor Lawrence.
I'll say
easily.
I want to hear Josh's take on this because I'm interested.
I think that Jacksonville would be very dumb to entertain that offer. And the biggest reason why for me is if you swing this deal for Watson, you're giving up all those assets that you need to rebuild that defense.
Yep.
And now Watson is basically right back to where he was with Houston. He's a 5-11 team because they can't stop anybody on defense.
Yep. That was actually my take as well. I thought we were taking it from the side of Houston. If I'm Houston, I damn near, with the way Deshaun Watson's acting right now, would do this straight up for Trevor Lawrence. That's not what you want to do. But if you're throwing in all of that other shit, I couldn't accept fast enough. I'd be like, yep, get him out of here. He doesn't want to be here.
Well, I mean,
we already screwed up with him.
And
it's like the classic, dynasty trade, right? Like if you're a rebuilding team, you have these great assets. You need to, you want to look to trade them to rebuild, right? Like you need additional pieces, not a 1-for-1 type deal. Both of these teams are rebuilding. They both suck.
But Josh, you've lost all privileges to extras thrown in with Deshaun Watson.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You were giving so much. I was like, good Lord. Yes, I'll accept that immediately.
And listen, with the Matt Stafford trade, and we'll get to that when we talk Brandon Staley. I mean, the price for Deshaun Watson should be 7 first-round picks at this point.
Oh, absolutely, it should be.
But the thing is, Matt Stafford wasn't disgruntled in Detroit. He just knew his time was up.
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson isn't going to play another snap for the Houston Texans. So if I'm the Texans, I don't understand. Why don't you just get him out of there for whatever you can get at this point? Because
that's why they can't do it, though, because then
the longer you wait, the worse it gets.
Does it, though? Because
yes. Look at Cincinnati when Carson Palmer went, right? He basically said, I'm not playing for this organization. And they called his bluff. And then when the team, the Raiders, finally stepped up and said, oh, hey, yeah, we'll give you what they end up giving, like a 2nd and 2 firsts or something for Palmer. And everybody was just like, this man hasn't played a down this season and you're giving up that much for him? Like, Houston is right. They should call his bluff. I would not take whatever I could get for him because whatever you can get for him is not going to be anywhere near equal value.
I also want to throw out, I'm actually on Deshaun Watson's side.
Agreed.
You have
1,000%.
a superstar quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
You need to be consulted, and you need to. The dude asked you to interview 2 people, and you interviewed neither, and then hired somebody. Like, you're asking for trouble if you're going to treat a young guy like this. I'm 100% on his side, but I'm also 100% on the side that if I'm the owner of the Houston Texans, fine, don't play another snap because I couldn't care less.
We're just going to keep finding you for missing games, and all that money that we're supposed to be paying you is going right back into our pocket.
Yeah, you're killing our salary cap. We were going to lose anyway. If we traded you, we were going to lose anyway. Let's do this, baby.
Yeah.
Get him out of there. Get him out of there.
I mean, I'm with you. Like, I understand the concept of, sometimes when you have an employee that just, you gotta move on from them. Yeah, you move on from them. But this is, to me, very different versus corporate America. Like, this is the face of your franchise. This is the one that can turn everything around for you, whether it's him being there for you or moving on. Like, you're not going to take less than for that deal because he's making his salary this year is pennies.
Yeah.
Like, another team should easily pay up for that. Easily.
Eat that up. Yep. I'm just the team in the best position to make this trade, and I'm not necessarily saying about the one that has the most draft capital to make the move, but also the right pieces around that they don't have to dive too much into that to keep the team competitive, is the Miami Dolphins.
Yep.
Because they can start with Tua. They could potentially trade the 3rd pick if they don't include Tua, or if they do include Tua, include the 3rd overall pick. Then you have all of Houston's other picks, but they still have the defense that they paid for, and they'll have draft picks still because they have that many draft picks to then keep infusing youth in this team. Watson can come in and can compete immediately, and they still have enough cap space to surround him with the pieces necessary when his salary starts to spike.
Yeah.
I agree. I couldn't agree more.
Two other teams I'd throw out, but I don't think they have the capital it would take to get him, would be Carolina and San Francisco. If either one of them could bring him in, they're far better for it.
Yeah, because neither of them have top 5 picks.
Exactly.
Yep.
Or a young quarterback to trade. They just have a bridge quarterback.
Yeah, I think we talked about that on the show. I love all these trades where it's like, would you take Jimmy Garoppolo in the 15th pick? And it's like, they don't want Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, they might take the 15th pick. Nobody wants Garoppolo. They're not, that's not the big part of that deal.
Brian, I'd beg to differ. Half of New England wants Jimmy Garoppolo. So. I mean, look, listen. The one
for those listening on the podcast or the radio, he literally just put a gun to his head and said,
listen. The one place he was successful was New England with Bill Belichick.
I mean, you could argue he's been successful in San Francisco. He did,
he threw 8 passes in the NFC Championship. That's not successful.
I mean, he helped them get to a championship. I mean,
Josh.
Look, I said helped. I didn't say lead. I said helped.
Josh. He threw 8 passes in the NFC Championship.
When you got a strong enough run game, you don't have to.
Do you understand that everybody currently sitting here could turn around and hand the ball off and lead their team to a Super Bowl like Jimmy Garoppolo did? Because we wouldn't even need to have completed any of those 8 passes. We just had to.
And see, here's the funny part to me, because the Packers, we knew in 2019 they didn't have a good run defense. They did so much to improve that in 2020, right?
Weren't they?
Some teams just never learn. Some teams just never learn.
Some teams never learn. Remember when Aaron Rodgers had 3 chances to drive down and went 3 and out against the Bucs, but the refs blew the game for them? God, the tears of Packers fans. So much fun. Okay. Let's talk Brandon Staley, because I do like, after Salah, I like Staley a lot. It's in the back of my head, I still think it's just another dumbass Sean McVay hire. Like, what is Zach Taylor done?
I don't think it is, though, because
I don't think it is either.
Dumbass McVay hires, they were all offensive guys.
And that's what I'm saying. And that's why I'm contradicting. It's like, he was under McVay, but he's also a defensive guy, and that defense was really good. So I think the issue with the Chargers far and away is their defense. Yeah. They can't close out games. And the offense has some to do with that as well. The offense sometimes can't score in the fourth quarter, but excuse me, a lot of the time they have a lead going into the fourth quarter and their defense blows chunks and screws it up for them. So I think maybe a guy like Brandon Staley can really shore that up. But on the offensive side, how do we feel about Herbert, Eckler, Allen? Take your pick. I mean, does this help Mike Williams? Please God, let it help Mike Williams. And also, I mean, do they re-sign Hunter Henry? Because he's the big name tight end out here. Do we expect Hunter Henry back in the powder blue, or is he playing in another uniform this year?
So they brought in Joe Lombardi from New Orleans, and I love every bit of this because Staley's going to be able to run the defense. And if you compare piece to piece, if you have Keenan Allen playing a Michael Thomas role and Austin Eckler playing an Alvin Kamara role, I love every bit of what this does for the offense. So I think this is great for everyone, and I do think they bring Hunter Henry back because I think Lombardi recognizes the importance of a tight end in his offense.
I agree. I think everyone's calling Hunter Henry. I mean, you look at the other tight ends, and we'll talk tight ends with Fantasy Mike from Ball Blast on March 10th, which I believe is the last Wednesday before free agency.
Correct.
So, I mean, you're looking at guys like your tight ends on the market. Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Robert Tonyan are probably your big 3. Tonyan's a restricted free agent, though. I think most people, if Rodgers ends up back in Green Bay, I think most people expect Tonyan to be back in Green Bay as well. Jonnu Smith, I don't think anybody thinks he's leaving Tennessee, but we'll see. The other guys are Jordan Reed, past age 30, Dan Arnold, and then Gerald Everett, who is strictly a receiver. So if a team wants to go out and get a second tight end to be a receiver, sure. But Hunter Henry is far and away your big name on the market here. So, I mean, if the Chargers really wanted to, they could go out and, maybe sign Gerald Everett if they're just going to do a receiving tight end. But I also expect them to bring back Hunter Henry unless Henry gets a wild offer from another team. I think the Chargers probably offer him, I don't know, 3 years, $30 million. That's $10 million a year. Does that seem unreasonable?
I don't think they bring back Hunter Henry. And I think a lot of it, I think a lot of it's going to be that Lombardi knows how to work tight ends into the offense. But to pay Hunter Henry 8, 9, 10, 11 million a year, that's featuring him in the offense.
Sure.
And they're not going to do that. You brought in Donald Parham, who got a little bit of run towards the end of the season. They could easily spend a 3rd or 4th round pick on a tight end as well. You mentioned Gerald Everett, who's going to cost pennies. Compared to Hunter Henry.
Hey, if you want to go even cheaper, I mean, Dan Arnold's going to be way cheaper, and I think Dan Arnold and
that's
Gerald
another
Everett
guy that you can split out wide. You can get creative with. I don't think you necessarily need a blocking tight end there. They still have Virgil Green if he's not a free agent, and he gets plenty of run on the interior. So paying Hunter Henry what they'll need to pay him, I don't think makes a ton of sense. I think it would be great for Herbert's development if they want to keep getting him involved, which again they could very well decide to do. But I could also see a team like Indianapolis make a run at him. Like they keep trying to bring back Jack Doyle and they, Trey Burton, who, is free agent now. Like they could use that guy. And if they end up making a trade for Carson Wentz, who seemingly wants to be in Indy, apparently, we know how Carson Wentz uses tight ends. Frank Reich was the offensive coordinator with the Chargers when Hunter Henry was drafted. Knows him very well. There's those connections there. It makes a ton of sense. I'm not saying it necessarily will happen because I don't know that Chris Ballard wants to pay that kind of money for a tight end. But if he can make the offense better, which we've seen that Frank Reich will utilize the tight end position, I think it makes a ton of sense because he can be a centerpiece of that offense where he's not going to be in LA with the Chargers because of Keenan Allen and because of Austin Eckler.
My counter argument to that would be after seeing what they were without Jimmy Graham, they went out and gave Jared Cook 2 years at $15 million.
But even he wasn't like more so than anything. He was a red zone guy. That was it.
Yeah, but what we're saying, you just said
6'8".
But you said $10 million for Hunter Henry. They gave 7.5 to Jared Cook. I'll pay the
Hunter Henry was on the
get
franchise tag for I think a little over 8 this past year.
This all
would you give him a raise after this past year?
If he's going to be a part of my offense, yes. And you need a touchdown.
Are you paying $10 million though for 650 yards and 4 touchdowns? I'm not.
I don't know what the average tight end salary in the NFL is right now.
I mean, Austin Hooper basically set the market out before Kelsey's extension at $11 million per year.
I will look it up right now.
Like that's the thing. Like, I understand like free agency, like you're going to get paid more because that's just what happens. Teams get desperate. But if you really wanted Hunter Henry long term, you would have locked him up before the franchise tag, because now you're going to have to pay him more than what he was making on the franchise tag. And for me, but he's not worth that because he doesn't have the upside that that some of these other guys have.
Josh, GMs are stupid. You got to remember.
Well,
that.
I'm aware of that, but Telesco's typically made better signings than most GMs. Let's put it that way.
Sure. No. I can agree with that. Looking at, I'm going to go back to the 2020 season. Looking at 2020, your top 5 tight ends were George Kittle, and these are AAV. George Kittle
and
he
at 15. Just signed that deal.
Yeah, he got paid.
Just signed that deal. George Kittle at 15, Travis Kelce at just over 14, Hunter Henry at 10.6.
Okay, so the franchise tag was a little higher. Okay.
Yep. Austin Hooper at 10.5, and Kyle Rudolph, Rob Gronkowski tied at 9. So technically, if you're paying him $10 million, you're giving him a pay cut. Just technically.
But
so
do we really think he's going to command more than Hooper on a year with the salary?
He's a free agent, and teams need tight ends.
I'm sorry, Austin Hooper's not that good.
Okay, that's fine, but they're not in the same free agent class. And after the season Henry just had, versus the season Hooper had. Hooper looked like a fantastic tight end after 2019.
Yeah, you have a point. Is a guy who capitalized on a good year and was able to, get a contract off of that. So you're looking at Hunter Henry, 60 catches, 613 yards, 4 touchdowns. He played in 14 games, so he did miss 2 games. And if you're looking at Austin Hooper, before he signed his contract with the Cleveland Browns, his last year with Atlanta, he had 75 catches, 787 yards, 6 touchdowns.
In 14 games.
Yeah, Henry was 12th among tight ends in receiving yards.
I'm just...
that doesn't scream $11 million tight end to me at all.
I agree.
Sorry.
But if you're going to use him in your offense, though, because he's never been 1, 2, he probably not even been third in that offense. It's gone Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, and you could argue, some games it's Mike Williams. But I mean, when Melvin Gordon was there, was 1, 2, 3. Henry was an afterthought in that offense. So to Ryan's point, if you're going to use Hunter Henry in your offense, you pay him $10 million a year.
I don't even know that he's going to command $10 million a year.
Yes, exactly.
That's my big thing. I think that's where our debate is here is, do we really think he's going after Austin Hooper money? And I don't think anyone's going to throw Austin Hooper money. Even the Colts.
Why wouldn't his agents command that kind of money? Like, look at Henry's career versus Hooper's. I mean, outside of Henry missing the 1 year, they're pretty comparable.
So I think what teams may do, and again, because the salary cap got killed this year, is they will say, if they want to give him $10 million a year, right? AAV. They say, hey, we'll give you 8 this year, 9 the next year, and then we'll up it, on the final 2 years of your contract, something like that. If they sign to a 4-year deal. But I just, again, to me, 3 years, $30 million just doesn't seem out of the question for him. And that's just, is he worth it? No. Is any player worth their contract? No.
Very few.
Almost never. Because you fucking Jared Goff is making $35 million a year. What? Like, are we serious here? So again, things like that. And something we didn't touch on here, and I know because, Sean McVay wasn't a new hire, but let's quickly talk about it because we're talking about, how these new coaching hires are going to help hurt fantasy players. But just looking at the former team that Brandon Staley used to be the defensive coordinator for, Matt Stafford, let's just talk about the trade implications there. All of us here agree that the Rams got trade raped. That was not even a question. They got absolutely boned in that trade. They have not had a first-round pick under Sean McVay. They have not drafted in the first round under Sean McVay. Their first-round picks have been Brandon Cooks, Jalen Ramsey, Matt Stafford. They have 0 Super Bowl
They did
rings
trade out once. And I think really the biggest reason that they traded out actually on draft day was because of the cap, and they couldn't afford to actually pay a first-round pick.
Oh, it's weird. Maybe because you give a guy like Jared Goff $35 million.
No, that was before they paid him. That was back when they'd like just extended
30.
Donald. They had extended Gurley. They brought in Cooks.
Last year, Jared Goff, Jalen Ramsey, and Aaron Donald accounted for over 50% of their team's salary cap.
Yeah, Kansas City is going to be in a similar situation here in the next couple of years with Hill and Kelsey and Chris Jones and Patrick Mahomes.
Because normally when you pay a quarterback $45 million a year, you don't have the money to surround him with Travis Kelce or Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
They're maximizing Mahomes' window before those big yearly salaries kick in.
Yes, very much so. Okay, so I'm just going to go through this quick. Matt Stafford, how does this better? Does this, I would just say, is it good or bad? Just tell me good or bad. Is it good or bad for Robert Woods, Ryan?
Good.
Very good.
Very good. That's an easy one. How about Van Jefferson, Josh Reynolds? We'll rope them into one because we don't really know who's going to be the third wide receiver there. So, pick your poison. How does that help them? Ryan?
I don't think they're going to be utilized enough. So
I don't think they're going to be utilized at all because they're going to bring in Marvin Jones.
It's not bad.
Or if they want to pay big money, they can't. Never mind. I'd say Kenny Golladay, but
so then Cooper Kupp. How does that help Cooper Kupp? Ryan?
You have a quarterback great at throwing touchdown passes with a wide receiver great at catching touchdown passes. I think it's great for Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I think it's good for Kupp too. We saw how much trust Stafford had in Danny Amendola. And
Exactly.
I think that Kupp is far better than Danny Amendola, especially out of the slot.
I mean, at this point in his career, yes.
At any point in Amendola's career, yes.
Yeah. Amendola's pretty clutch. I gotta give him that. But you made me lose my train. Oh, Tyler Higbee. Big question. How does that help Tyler Higbee, Ryan?
Again, I love it. Not only the Tyler Higbee, but Gerald Everett leaving. I think you're going to see Higbee used more as a wide receiver still.
Okay.
You'll see Johnny Munt used as a blocker, and I think Stafford's going to be able to take full advantage.
Josh?
Higbee sucks. He will not be used. The only reason that TJ Hawkinson had the year that he had was because Kenny Golladay missed half the year.
Okay, so now flip it to the other side with Jared Goff in Detroit. How does that help?
Well, first of all, you can only say 2 names for Detroit because nobody else has a contract.
Right.
So how does it help DeAndre Swift? It's
Big
great.
time.
How does it help TJ Hawkinson? It's terrible, but he's going to see 160 passes, so it doesn't matter.
Oh,
I like
Jared
Cephas
Goff.
as a dart throw, if that helps.
No, he's not. Not with Goff.
No.
He's not.
I said a dart throw because he's going to be a 15th,
Josh,
16th round pick.
Josh,
So.
Josh, remember when I said it's like trying to hit a bullseye blindfolded 100 yards away? That's Jared Goff and Quintez Cephas.
Yep.
I think Detroit is going to struggle so mightily to get a wide receiver to sign there is going to be the problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Goff's reputation is just in the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
You have this coach that literally sounds like a psychopath, and I just don't know that that's going to play well for wide receivers. It's going to play well. They're going to be able to stack their defense. They're going to get offensive linemen because they love that psychopath shit. A wide receiver is going to be like, nah,
They're prima donnas, man.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, wait, you're coming for my kneecaps? Fuck you, homie. I'm out.
So there's your Lions analysis with Dan Campbell. We'll just quickly go over Arthur Smith here. Offensive coordinator, so it should bode well for Matt Ryan, Julio Jones. I don't think that's gonna
and I don't see them being traded. I remember all those rumors starting, and they're still kind of bubbling.
Yeah,
I don't think Arthur Smith's gonna. I don't want to say allow that because he doesn't have that kind of pull, but I don't think he's gonna allow that. I don't think you sign with this team knowing you're getting ready to move 2 of my best 3 pieces. So.
Yeah, yep. So nothing really is gonna change. It's probably, if anything, it's only probably going to get better.
Well,
Yeah,
I was gonna say,
I like the Arthur Smith hire for the Atlanta offense personally.
I like it
Matt
for
Ryan
fantasy
has
football.
10 straight 4,000-yard seasons. Ryan Tannehill had a career year last year and only threw 3,800. His TD percentage was extremely high for him, a career high at 6.9%, and had 65.5 completion percentage. Matt Ryan's career completion percentage is 65.4, I believe.
Yeah. That's the thing.
So this is really going to help Arthur Smith in terms of calling plays, but they need a running game. The last 2 years, they have been 2nd and 3rd, respectively, in rush offense. Tennessee has.
We've already said
we'll get to my big prediction later, but you've seen him run through the playoffs this year, and that's who I think lands in Atlanta this year.
That's all over my notes too. I didn't go look at your predictions yet, but I don't even need to go any further because I know we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah. I know Atlanta's got some cap problems, but I think they'll find a way to get through it, and they'll get creative where they need to. But Arthur Smith is going to want a running game, plain and simple.
Yep.
And with the offensive line issues that Atlanta has had, like they spent 2 first-round picks, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, on offensive linemen, and they just keep getting hurt. Like they need to fix those issues. But again, like Arthur Smith wants to run the football. That's pretty evident based on what we've seen in Tennessee the last couple of years. So they'll pay for a running back. I don't think they'll draft one.
I think it's a great head coaching signing for fantasy football players. It is a terrible head coaching signing for actual football. They're gonna. I mean, you said it. I mean, Matt Ryan should have a great year. Julio Jones, again, barring his health, should have a great year. Calvin Ridley. I don't think we expect any of that to fall off. I don't know how that helps their defense. Like, are they, if they're keeping Raheem Morris at DC?
Well, I mean, anytime you hire an offensive coach, it's not going to help their defense. It's all in who they bring in to be the defensive coordinator.
If you bring in a head coach that's willing to commit to the run and it works, that helps your defense.
Definitely.
Again, Point I'm getting at. They will bring in a running back.
Yep. If you have a quarterback who's going to be completing 70% of his passes while not throwing 650 passes in the season, all of this should benefit your defense. But I agree with you, Joe. They need to hire some new trainers so that people on this team don't get hurt. I'd love to see Keanu Neal play an entire football season once and know how good he actually is. Yeah.
Good luck with that one, Ryan. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But yeah, and we'll talk running backs with. Someone's got to tell me her last name. Kate
Magdziuk.
Yeah, I'm never gonna get that from that. Kate Magdziuk of Ball Blast. We'll have her on February 24th, so 2 weeks from today. She's gonna talk free agent running backs with us. But on to the second to last guy, Nick Serrani. Josh, I'll kind of let you take the reins here because this is obviously your team, but it just not a single team had him on their radar. He just came out of nowhere.
That's it. They wanted a puppet. That's the same thing when they brought in Peterson. The difference is that Peterson won them a Super Bowl, so he felt that he should have more say. Howie Roseman wants to run this ship. He has no idea anything about football. He's a freaking mathlete. He's a spreadsheet king. Like, that's what he does. He runs a cap, and our cap is terrible as a result of that. So, but for whatever reason, he has Jeffrey Lurie's ear, and Lurie trusts him, and they're just, it is what it is. I don't want to say that Sirianni can't succeed because I didn't have high hopes for Peterson either. And I know a lot of people bagged that signing and thought that he was blah at best. He was just a guy that helped Andy Reid out. He didn't call any plays, etc. Well, you've got kind of the same situation here with Sirianni. He's from, Frank Reich. He's been the offensive coordinator in Indianapolis the last 3 years. He's worked with Anthony Lynn. He's worked with Todd Haley. Sirianni's worked with some big name offensive coordinator, and head coaches in the league. So he's got a lot to pull from in terms of creating an offense and whatever is going to lead this team going forward. But our cap is it's hell. Like, they're going to have to strip this team down. They're going to lose a lot of veterans. And by losing a lot of veterans, you lose a lot of locker room leaders. So his leadership is going to be tested. And when you look at him just in terms of his age and what he's accomplished or lack thereof so far in his career, I don't know that everybody's going to buy into that, So I'm curious to see what's going to happen with the Eagles. And obviously the quarterback is the big issue because is Carson going? Is he staying? If he stays, I think it's going to make Sirianni's job even harder because then he's ultimately going to have to make a choice between the two. And I really don't know who the front office wants, if they're leaning one way or the other. But Roseman created this mess by spending a second-round pick on Jalen Hurts, so he's got nobody to blame but himself.
So just looking at the cap space, this is just for the top 51 players.
Oh, they're when they roll over the $22 million that they had from this year, I think they're still over almost $60 million.
I'm going to tell you right now. So it's just the top 51. They have 64 players currently signed. And again, a lot of those guys, outside of top 51, they're low end guys. So not really going to do much for your cap. And obviously some of them, most of them are going to get cut. They are $41 million over the cap. Wow. They are
a little better.
Second. They're second to the New Orleans Saints, who are $70 million over the cap. So
does that count the huge drop they just got from Breeze? Do you know?
I think
it does because they were 90+ million before.
Yeah,
this
right then. Yep.
This updates. I think it's Spot Track. It updates. I think every day. So it's the same. I mean, if you are a Rams, Eagles, or Saints fan, I mean, you could even rope in the Falcons, Packers. All those teams are above. Or they're over 20 million over the cap.
I don't think the Rams, Josh, you kind of joked about this. I don't think they'll be able to bring in Marvin Jones. So,
Marvin Jones will take a lot less. He's not going to get paid.
But I mean, they're going to have to cut people to sign people.
Oh, no, absolutely they will.
Josh, Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey account for 40% of their cap space
I know.
at this point.
Hey, one thing I wanted to throw in on Sirianni, though, that has me very worried about this in general, is if you go back and look at his history, when he was with Haley and KC, they had Matt Castle at quarterback. When he was with the Chargers, they had Phillip Rivers at quarterback. And then he's been look at his one season with a mobile quarterback. And I understand Hurts should be better than Jacoby Brissett, but that was a putrid season in Indianapolis where Brissett was the quarterback, just inefficient and terrible for fantasy. if Hurts is the quarterback, you said it might be worse if Wentz is there. I would prefer if Wentz was the starter in this offense just because it's going to play into what Sirianni's strong with. If it's Hurts, I'm desperately worried about this offense and probably will be avoiding every Eagle not named Miles Sanders in the draft.
Here's a fun thing for you, though, Ryan. When you talk about Brissett as the quarterback with the Colts, their rushing offense in Indianapolis with Sirianni as the offensive coordinator was actually better under Brissett.
And that makes perfect sense.
Yep. So that helps Miles Sanders.
So that's obviously a big boom for Sanders.
And it's probably great for Hurts.
And Hurts, yeah. Man, I mean, Matthew Berry's been tweeting about it. He's like, Hurts is going to be a top 10 quarterback for me if they move on from Wentz. Like, I mean, you look at, look at what really the graphic that he was putting up was comparing Hurts's first 4 starts versus Lamar Jackson's last 4 starts of 2018. And I'm like, I feel like that's trying to compare apples to oranges. Like, not every running quarterback that struggles passing the football is the same. Like, some of them improve, some of them don't. I think Hurts has the ability to improve, much like we saw Jackson take a leap in 2019, but we also saw him regress in 2020. Yeah. So if Sirianni is this like QB whisperer that, some people like to think that he might be, but I mean, he got handed Phillip Rivers last year. Like, Rivers has been doing this a long time. Like,
and he worked with Rivers before.
So, yeah, exactly. He'd worked with Rivers before with Anthony Lynn. So, he hasn't worked with Wentz. He hasn't worked with Jalen Hurts. So I don't know that he's going to help them get better.
Remember when Adam Gase was the quarterback whisperer? Because same.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Because he, worked 1 season with Peyton Manning or 2 seasons or whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
This isn't 1 season with a top 5 quarterback of all time. And everyone's like, exactly. Good for you. Yeah. Because it's Peyton Manning. It's like Byron Leftwich works 1 year with Tom Brady and takes him to the Super Bowl. Byron Leftwich should not be getting head coaching offers. Like, I'm not saying Byron Leftwich is a bad OC. I'm just saying Byron Leftwich is not a quarterback whisperer. It's because Tom Brady and Peyton Manning are 2 of the greatest quarterbacks ever.
And I'll give you most of that, but wasn't Leftwich there with
Leftwich was there with
last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Outside of the interceptions, that was a hell of a season by Winston as well.
Listen, Leftwich has done a pretty solid job. But again, Leftwich.
How much of that is Arians, though? And that's the thing with some of these offensive coordinators that are behind let Arians coaches.
Tell it, it's not though.
Well, but I mean, like, this is a Bruce Arians offense. Like, we all know that. And it's kind of the same thing with Bieniemy in Kansas City. It was the same thing with Peterson in Kansas City. Like, Matt Nagy in Kansas City. Like, how much of this is just Andy Reid's offense that you guys are just taking credit for? Because Matt Nagy hasn't really looked the part. Doug Peterson's play calling the last 3 years has been dog shit.
Well, until they get the chance, you don't know, though. Because
I agree.
Because they said the same thing about Andy Reid coming out of Holmgren and Gruden coming out of Holmgren, and it's just there's a lot that plays into all of that.
That's one of the reasons. I'm sorry. Everyone up Eric Bieniemy's ass that he should be getting a head coaching job. I'm so like. I think there's
it's definitely hard to justify it after watching that Super Bowl. I will agree.
Yeah, and if you're talking about this offensive genius and he deserves the world for what he's done, his offense, who people have dubbed Patrick Mahomes the greatest of all time already. He's been in the league 5 fucking years.
4.
How did it look?
Okay, I'm going to stop you right here because this is getting to be a ridiculous argument. Are we saying that Bill Belichick is no longer an offensive genius because the offense was dog shit this year?
Bill Belichick was never an offensive genius. He was a defensive genius.
But
always has been a defensive genius.
But I'm just saying, like, we're talking about one bad game out of Bieniemy after a season of highlight reel work.
Sure,
and now we just want to say he's not good.
I mean, how about that 3-4 week stretch where every single game was a 1 touchdown game and the offense wasn't producing as well as it traditionally does?
Every one of the games.
Oh yeah, because they were playing the Atlanta Falcons in one of them, who chokes it away. They're not playing good teams. Like that's the thing is they're going to win their games because they're not playing good teams. And I'm sorry, there's a reason Bieniemy is not getting hired. There has to be a reason. Like there has to be a reason.
I mean, we've had Tommy Garrett on. If you listen to him, it's because he doesn't interview well. Which, hey, I get that. I'm not a very strong interviewer, but I'm damn good at what I do. So
yeah, and that's something where sometimes people suck at interviewing and they're great at their job. But if you're looking for a head coach to command the room and he can't command you as a GM and you as an owner, how's he going to command a room of 53 guys ready to go out and play a football game? And it looks like Freddie Kitchens. He looked great as an offensive coordinator calling plays for the Browns that one year with Mayfield. He got some of the best plays out of Mayfield up until that point in his career. How do you look as a head coach? He was dog shit because he doesn't know how to command a room. Eric Bieniemy may be that guy. Josh McDaniels, one of the best offensive coordinators of the last 10 years, is a shitty head coach because he can't command a room and he can't do anything outside of offense.
Well, and that's kind of the thing, too, is sometimes you don't really know how they're going to react to that until you give them that opportunity.
And that's the thing. And two, I'm sorry, if I'm Eric Bieniemy, why the fuck would I want to leave Kansas City? You're lined up for probably 5 Super Bowl rings.
And maybe that's what this all comes down to is everyone's saying he doesn't interview well.
Maybe
and I understand. I was going to say, I understand media interviews. I understand media interviews and job interviews are something different, but friend of the show, John Helmkamp, actually got to speak with him and said it was delightful speaking with him. So he even called BS on the not interviewing. Maybe he doesn't want to leave. Maybe it's the whole thing where he's interviewing the team and they're not telling him what he wants to hear. So he's like, nah, I'm out of here, bro. Like,
yeah, that could very well be it. Maybe he thinks that, he's the guy that teams need to come to versus him being the guy that needs to go to teams.
And maybe there's a thing about it that I know this. I don't know Eric Bieniemy as a man. I'm not going to pretend to, but I know he has some red flags in his past. Those things are going to get brought up more if he's a head coach. Absolutely. Right now, he's kind of living on easy street. He doesn't need money. He's a former player. I mean, there's so many things that play into this. Yeah. So.
I don't know how much he's making as an offensive coordinator, but I'd imagine he's making a sizable amount of money.
I imagine.
And again, if you just like put yourself in Eric Bieniemy's shoes, because everyone brings up he's a minority and that's why he's not getting hired. Put yourself in Eric Bieniemy's shoes. If you have the best quarterback in the NFL lined up at your disposal to make you look like one of the best offensive coordinators of all time, who's also lined up to put you in the easiest conference, lined up to get to the Super Bowl every single year.
And arguably the easiest division in that conference right
yes,
now,
arguably the easiest division in that conference. Yeah. The AFC South would like to have a word just because the Jaguars and Texans both reside there. But
that all fell apart very quickly.
Yeah. But it's still, I mean, if you're looking at the 8 conferences, 8 divisions in the NFL, they're probably 6, which is still very, very low.
I would just like to say the NFC East had a below 500 team go to the playoffs. I think they belong last on that list.
Yeah, no, and they're 8. The South is the AFC South is probably 7, and the AFC West probably 6. But again, you're looking at it. Why would you want to leave if you're making good money? Why would you want to leave?
And it also goes to something I've been saying about New England is, if anyone knows when Belichick's going to hang him up, it's Belichick and it's McDaniels. If anybody, Andy Reid is not a spring chicken.
Yeah.
And then more family issues pop up for Andy Reid again this offseason. At some point, Andy Reid's going to step away. And if Bieniemy's like, well, I have Patrick Mahomes locked up for 9 more years, and this is likely my job, why the hell would I go coach Houston for the next 5? Or let's be clear, if he went to Houston, he'd be there for 2 years because they're going to fire him, which we'll get to in a second.
Yeah.
But anyway, for 1 year. Come on now.
So Andy Reid is 62. He'll be 63 on March 19th. So he'll be 63 going into next season. I mean, he's not super old. You got Pete Carroll, 69, Bill Belichick, 68. So there's guys coaching well into their 60s. Carroll's going to be 70 this year.
I'm going to venture a guess that Andy Reid may not be as healthy as Pete Carroll nor Bill Belichick.
I would also venture to say that as well. But again, I'm not saying Andy Reid is young, but I'm also not saying that he's up there with guys like Carroll and Bill Belichick.
No, not at all.
Point. And you also bring up a good point, a lot of the family problems that have popped up for him. And, maybe he wants to put family first now at this point. And I'm sure Bieniemy knows. Why would he leave? Oh, it's just if you're at a job, right? Why would you leave a good situation that's paying you probably the exact same amount of money to go take a job with more responsibility that's going to pay you the same amount of money
Yeah,
no
after
one in their right mind would take on more responsibility for the same amount of money.
Even if it's not the same amount, after X amount of dollars, it's the same amount of money.
Yeah.
So,
And look, the great thing, I mean, if Houston were to hire him, there is no state sales tax, or there is no state tax, income tax in Texas, which, maybe plays a factor for him. But again, he's still getting hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That's what I'm saying. I can't imagine money plays into any of these for these coaches. Maybe if you're David Culley, you go from some sort of coordinator, special teams coordinator role to head coach.
You mean the Ravens wide receiver coach?
Yeah, I imagine his pay jump was extensive.
And that's what we're going to end the show here is David Culley. And Josh, I know your take on this, and I what you're going to say is what I think it is. I agree with you. He's the former Ravens wide receivers coach.
The prolific Ravens wide receiving corps.
Prolific wide receivers. Also part of the passing game coordination.
Sweet.
So he's been, obviously the Ravens and Lamar Jackson have done wonders through the air during his time there. And the receivers have been obviously like Pro Bowl caliber receivers every year David Culley's been there. Josh, your thoughts on Mr. Culley and the Houston Texans signing?
This is a scapegoat hire.
Yep.
That's exactly what this is. Nobody wanted this job because they're outside of Deshaun Watson. There are no attractive pieces. And being a Brandon Cooks fan, I'm not saying that lightly because I do like Brandon Cooks. I mean, there are very few wide receivers that can go through what he's gone through. I think he's been on 4 teams in 5 years and has 4,000-yard seasons.
Yeah,
there's a big difference. Happen often. I think Brandon Cooks is very underrated. Yeah,
but he's not the kind of guy a coach is like.
No, absolutely not. No, absolutely
I'm saying there's nothing wrong with what you're saying.
Yeah. It's Deshaun Watson. He is the piece on this team that everybody wants because there really isn't anybody else outside of JJ Watt, and I think his time in Houston is nigh. But nobody wants this job. They're in absolute hell in terms of draft picks because they have none, so they don't have any until next year. So you decide to bring in a guy because Deshaun Watson wanted you to interview Eric Bieniemy, who happens to be black. And I'm not trying to throw race at the wall here, but I feel like that's what this is. You hired a black coach to appease your black quarterback from an owner who is very suspect, kind of racist. I'm not even gonna lie.
I'd say who is notoriously racist. Yeah. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
And I don't like being accusatory without actually knowing somebody. That's just my personal feeling. If somebody else wants to say it, that's fine. But it takes a lot. Being a Miami fan, it takes a lot for someone like Andre Johnson to speak up. This is a guy that went through his entire career and kept his damn mouth shut. The only time that you ever saw him overreact was when Cortland Finnegan got in his face.
Yep.
And now he's come out and said, this is what happens when you have Jack Easterbay or whatever his last name is in your front office. When Andre Johnson speaks, you listen. And Johnson came out and said this. Deshaun Watson is not playing another down for Houston. Cal McNair is running this team into the absolute ground. More than, 80% of the NFL is African-American, if I'm not mistaken? Some crazy number like that? Yeah. Let me rephrase that. Not crazy number, but it's just, this is what you need players, coaches, executives that understand this. They do not understand this in Houston at all.
The simple fact that he asked them to interview 2 GMs and you didn't interview him is a spit in his face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you kind of brought up Andre Johnson, but let's not forget, you literally chose Bill O'Brien, who you then fired a month later. Not a true month, but you know what I mean. Yeah. You chose Bill O'Brien over DeAndre Hopkins. That tells me all I need to know about your racist ass. And I know you don't want to throw it out there. There's a lot that goes into it because there was the whole thing about, something about his baby mamas at practice or some bullshit that got said. How do you not fire Bill O'Brien the second that gets brought up? Second, sorry, DeAndre, this dumb shit is gone. You're our guy. Imagine this team.
NFL teams bleed money. He could have a losing franchise for 20 years
and
still make money. And still make money.
So hold on. Steve McNair is the GM, correct?
Cal McNair. He's the owner.
Cal McNair is the owner and GM?
No, they hired
Easter.
Serrano or something, Nick Serrano or something
Nick Serrano,
from New England.
Oh, Nick Caserio.
Caserio, there you go. Something like that.
Okay. But I mean, I thought he was playing GM and owner, but I mean, the perfect
Well, essentially
example,
he was, though, because he was the GM before they had one. When Deshaun Watson said, "Can you please interview these two guys at GM? Here's my small 2-guy list," and they're like, "Nah, fuck you."
Nick Caserio. And look, Caserio's not bad, but I mean, if your franchise quarterback asks you, you interview
him. Appease him. It to me, it's not that difficult. And
how hard is it just to interview and be like, "Sorry, bro, they suck compared to this Caserio dude. Wait till you meet him."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's not hard.
And they didn't even involve him in the Caserio.
And my other issue with Culley, and again, it's not with Culley himself. I mean, but when you have a guy that's 65 years old that is just now getting his opportunity to be a head coach, to me that's a red flag. Like, if you had head coaching potential, you had it when you were 45 or even 50. And again, to me, this just feels like when Arizona hired Steve Wilkes, they brought him in for a year because they just needed somebody to hire, and they wiped the floor with him. They said, "You're gone. We've got the number 1 pick, and we're just going to go and get our guy." That's what's going to happen. I would put money on the fact that Culley's going to get fired after this year, when Houston has the number 1 overall pick, their own number 1 overall pick, mind you, and they can restart their franchise. That's what I think is going to happen. And it's sad to say, like, I respect Culley. He's getting the opportunity that I know that he's probably wanted all these years. But this is going to end very badly for him, and it's not even going to be his fault. It sucks.
Yeah, he's only in a situation to fail, and that is not any fault of his own. He is set up to fail. And I think in the back of his mind, he probably knows that. I mean, obviously he's going into it thinking, okay, let me turn this absolute dumpster fire of a franchise around and let me, make a name for myself. And I'm sure that's,
and I'm not saying he can't do what Brian Flores did.
And that's what I was going to throw out. I want to throw out one caveat to all of this. If they get Watson to play after dude just watched an entire offense with Lamar Jackson, now, in my opinion, you get a better version of Lamar Jackson. This could be a good offense with a happy Deshaun Watson. It's not going to happen, but it could be a good offense, and I will backtrack most of what I'm saying. I'm still not saying Culley's a good coach or the right hire or any of that, but if this is Watson, this could be a decent team. If it's not Watson, I will not draft a single Houston Texan this year.
Yep. Nope. Off the Texans train. The Texans are a full stay away if Deshaun Watson
from every aspect. I honestly think they will have the number 1 pick next year. I really do.
I don't think they'll win a game.
They definitely won't win a game if Deshaun Watson's not there.
Yeah. Unless they get
and I'm going to throw this out as just like a one-off because I don't really want to get into it next week. I could totally see Robert Griffin III going to Houston.
Why not?
Texas, the home state, played at Baylor. Culley.
Played with Culley.
Yep. I mean, especially if Watson balks, why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
To be honest, that's not the worst decision, because if Griffin can stay healthy, which is unlikely as well, but if he could, that's the transition quarterback you want for this season, because you need someone who can move, and there are very little guys in the NFL right now who can move like him.
Yeah. You need someone who can move and also get you to 0-16, and I think Robert Griffin III is the
perfect candidate. You are not wrong.
I think RG3 is the prime candidate there. And look, he had a promising career, right? And then his ACL decided to just go poof, and that's that's the end of Robert Griffin III.
Yep.
But yeah, you're right. Baylor kid.
It's actually a good call. Haven't put that one together.
Yep. Baylor's 3 hours, 2.5 hours up the road. So I think that's not a bad idea if they want.
That's a public relations move. That's exactly
100%.
Oh, you're telling me the Texans aren't going to do all PR moves this year? You tell me they're not going to do all PR moves this year?
As somebody who works in sports marketing, Joe, I think you know that one.
I hate PR. Oh God. Oh, it is so. Listen, some PR you get to work with players, which is fun, right? a lot of you never get props in PR. You only get yelled at because you're the one that has to do all these bitch ass.
You're
like,
doing damage control. Yep.
All these dumbass statements. You're doing damage control. Like PR never gets to have any fun. You're just our player punched a female. Great. Now we got to put out a damn statement. And then the week after,
and it's all in how you word it too.
And you can never word it right. If you work in PR, you will never ever get a statement right. But you were talking about PR. The Houston Astros fucking botched their PR with Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman after that debacle that they had with the trash cans. I mean, no PR is ever good. Never. Anytime you hear from a PR person, it's never good. It's always bad. It is always covering up or damage control for something.
Yep.
God. Yeah, that's why I chose the marketing and design side. Screw PR. Oh, listen. Props to you people in PR that are up till 1 a.m. drafting these statements. And I mean, I'm sure like at this point you probably just Google best statement for, domestic abuse. It's like there's got to be a Google template that you guys just share around in the NFL at this point.
Oh
with the
my
amount of
god,
domestic abuse.
that's terrible.
It's not terrible. It's it's
no, it's
true.
terrible to think that that's a real thing.
Yeah,
I mean, with the amount that it happens, like it's not. I mean, obviously it's a terrible thing, but with the amount that it happens, you're just like. Props to you, PR people. Props to you. Yeah. Hats off to you, my friends. All right. We've already spoiled a few of the guests, but the next week's guest is going to be Jason Moore of the Fantasy Footballers. Yeah.
Ryan.
Cash. Super cash, Jason Moore. We already talked about we'll have Kate from Ball Blast on in 2 weeks, Eric Moody from The Athletic in 3, and Fantasy Mike rounding out our free agency previews from Ball Blast Football.
That'll actually be his second appearance with us on Club Fantasy, but his first on No Pun Intended.
No pun intended, yes, because he appeared with Ryan and Kira.
Correct.
On
DFS and Chill, week 17.
DFS and Chill. All right, and then we're going to end this on early 2021 predictions, and I'll run through these because we're up against the clock here.
Yeah.
Josh, you have the Eagles finishing last in the NFC East. That's I don't know if that's. I guess these aren't bold predictions. Yeah. They're just early, so yeah, that's fair.
These aren't hot takes. They're just predictions.
Okay, great. The Steelers missed the playoffs on what is Big Ben's last season. That's very fair. Leonard Fournette gets paid this offseason, and that's the guy you were teasing. Will get paid by Atlanta, and Ryan aggressively agrees with that one.
Oh, yeah. I think that's great.
Yep, and you say they need to create cap space, but Smith is going to prioritize a run game, and I agree with that. Allen Robinson signs a 1-year deal with a contender. You say Miami, Baltimore, and Indy are your top choices. He will go to Tampa Bay. There's one of my early 2021 predictions because he tweeted out, a ring sounds nice. Just saying.
Again, that's why I say he's going to sign with a contender, and with the cap being what it is this year, I think he'll ultimately just settle on a 1-year deal. That's what I think.
He's going to take a discount and play with Tom Brady. Watch it. Mike Evans.
I think the only way that happens is them not being able to re-sign Chris Godwin because they need to bring back their defensive players.
Mike Evans and Allen Robinson.
God, that'd be gross.
That'd be a problem.
That'd be gross.
That'd be disgusting. Ryan. You have the Chiefs are back to the Super Bowl again. The Browns are in the AFC Championship. Ooh. Tampa Bay falls apart. Well, okay. Arizona is going to be a problem next season. That's weird. Did they fire Cliff Kingsbury or is he still employed? That's weird. I didn't know that they fired Cliff Kingsbury. Second-year running backs are going to eat, and the tight ends.
I agree wholeheartly with that one.
Yeah, they're going to eat, and the tight ends will still suck. According to Ryan,
you are not wrong, Ryan.
I looked at the show doc 20 minutes before we got on air because if you didn't know, I was moving this past weekend.
Yeah, so you're moving and have like a big job.
So yeah, I got a big time job now. So I didn't get to type in my early 2021 predictions, but for the Patriots,
who's gonna be your quarterback next year?
Who is going to be your quarterback next year?
I know who it's not going to be.
if it is Cam Newton, if it is Cam Newton, I am 2 stories up. I'm on the 2nd floor.
If you jump, you'll just end up in the hospital with a couple.
In all seriousness, of realistic possibilities, who do you want to be your quarterback next year?
Realistic possibility, Jimmy Garoppolo. That's the only realistic possibility. That's
and that you want.
Yeah,
that?
because I can see.
I don't want that, Ryan.
No, that's. I said, who do you want out of realistic possibilities?
Who do I want out of realistic possibilities?
The draft pick.
Say, is it a rookie?
I mean, who is it?
I could see Mac Jones falling in New England.
God, I was listening to the Sports Hub, Patriot Sports Radio on the way home. Someone said Mac Jones statistically had a better year than Joe Burrow. He started listing off all these advanced analytics bullshit. And I was screaming in my car that, are you fucking kidding me? We're going to compare Joe Burrow and Mac Jones.
I was going to say that's literally using statistics to tell whatever story you want.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Fuck. If statistics
numbers
were all
never lie.
If
the
statistics were
do.
if statistics were all we looked at, Jay Cutler is the best quarterback of all time. Like, if that's all we looked at, Jay Cutler is a top 10 quarterback of all time. Realistically, I wouldn't hate Jameis Winston. I wouldn't hate Sam Darnold. I would love
that again. That's going to be that big trade interdivision. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, and it's not going to happen. But if the Cowboys don't want Dak Prescott, I'd love Dak Prescott.
I cannot wait to talk about Dak with Jason next week. It's insane to me that he is still a free agent.
It's ridiculous. But I mean, if there's a quarterback in the draft, the kid at BYU, Zach Wilson, correct?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to fall that far, though.
I don't think he falls that far either. And then, I mean, real dart throw. I don't know where he goes, but Desmond Ridder out of Cincinnati. I don't know. He impressed me in the Peach Bowl.
He's coming back.
He's coming back. Okay.
Not in the draft, sure.
Okay. I was gonna say he impressed me in the Peach Bowl. So I'd be interested to see maybe next year where he falls if he has another good year at Cincinnati. Where he falls in the 2022 draft. But
we made a joke before the show. How would you have felt if Taylor Heineke signed with New England?
Oh, I would ecstatic. Are you kidding me? I want the Old Dominion mathematician on my team.
All right.
Oh my God. Taylor Heineke?
I bet you he could run the cap better than Howie Roseman.
Taylor Heineke? Ryan, did you see Taylor Heineke in the playoffs?
Woo.
Did you see that play? Oh, I want here's the thing, right? Does he have all the skill of a starter? No. God, no.
He's a bridge quarterback.
Does he have any of the skill of a starter?
But does he work his ass off and actually has some intangibles that Cam Newton just doesn't have anymore? God, yes. Would Taylor Heineke have taken that team to better than 7-9? Hell yes. He would have. I'm not saying they would have made the playoffs.
I think you're assuming that he would make it through a full 16-game schedule the way that he plays football.
I love it. Reckless abandonment.
I'm not saying I don't love it. I'm just saying I don't think he plays more than 12 games in a full season.
I don't think he can play how he played in that one game in that many games.
Well, that's the point that I'm getting.
Well, no, I don't even mean the injury thing. There's tape on him. Defense. I'm not sold at all.
So my final answers would be Winston is probably the easiest one because he's a free agent. Darnold is harder because it's in division. Not Cam Newton. Dak Prescott. Like Ryan already said, anyone would love Dak Prescott. Jimmy G also just seems like a realistic option.
Yeah.
I don't like it, but it's a realistic option. Another realistic option that I'm on the fence about is Derek Carr.
Interesting.
I don't hate Derek Carr because Derek Carr has shown flashes that he is an all-pro quarterback, and then the next week he doesn't even look like he should be in the NFL. So I don't really know, but it's going to be a lot of checkdowns, and Derek Carr is Mr. Checkdown himself. So,
see, what's funny is he's Mr. Checkdown, but he also throws a very accurate deep ball. I actually have a landing spot for Derek Carr. We'll talk about it next week, but there's a spot I want him to go.
All right, there we go. All right, so that is it for this week from the three Amigops right here. Next week, Jason Moore with the Fantasy Footballers will be joining us.
That's now the second of the 3 fantasy footballers we've had on this show.
Yeah.
Andy Holloway, I'm talking
Andy.
to you, buddy.
Yeah. Stop being left out in the cold.
We'll have to tell Jason to give Hitman a proper suck it from Josh on the Higbee talk.
Hey, they actually talked a little bit about Tyler Higbee on the Truth About Tight Ends episode. Hitman admitted the loss, but interestingly enough, and if we want to give Jason a hard time, Jason, because of all the switches, is turning around and liking Tyler Higbee now. So,
Jason,
I think a lot of people are liking Tyler Higbee just because of what TJ Hawkinson did, and again, ignoring the fact that Hawkinson did what he did because Golladay missed all.
And we're clear to talk about Stafford next week, so it'll lead into it naturally.
There you go.
So we can just fight all of the fantasy footballers on the basis of Tyler Higbee.
Jason, you fool! But I also told Hitman that Robert Woods would be a low end wide receiver 1, and he was. So
yep,
nailed it. Hitman 0 for 2 on the no pun intended.
I hate to burst this balloon. I haven't went back and listened to it yet. I'm pretty sure the debate was whether or not he would be top 10 or not top 10. And I think Hitman actually said he would finish 11 or 12. So.
Yeah, because we had discussed top 5, top 12 or wide receiver 2. He put the odds at top 5 very low.
Yes, he said it wasn't going to happen.
I do remember that, which I think we all agreed on.
We all agreed on that.
Yeah. But top 12, I didn't think was out of the realm of possibility. I was
gonna say, I think we're throwing.
I think Mike was on that bandwagon. He's like, could it happen? Sure.
I don't think any footballer has ever disliked Bobby Trees.
Oh, they all love him.
Listen, fantasy footballers. If you want a real host, I'm here for you. Right here.
Oh man, throw shade at
Andy. First of all, you're taking shots at Andy, who hasn't even been on the show yet.
Andy, come join us, buddy. They are awesome. Obviously at the pinnacle of fantasy football here. So super excited to have Jason on with us next week. And this Saturday as well, we have Club Dynasty. No, psych. What? We don't have Club Dynasty this Saturday?
That's why we did it on the show sheet. No.
Oh, I just figured you forgot to add it on there. We don't have Club Dynasty.
Yeah, push it back. Some circumstances came up. We'll announce it later. So
circumstances have arisen.
Kind of like yesterday when we were supposed to drop the Speakeasy episode.
Joe, I don't care if I never want a sponsorship from this country. CenturyLink is the worst fucking company on the face of this planet. Terrible. Wow, they are.
I had them when I was in Vegas, and that was 8 years ago. They were god awful too.
Are they internet?
Yeah,
I don't know who they are. Okay, I say they've never been in any of my areas, so I don't know who they are.
Oh my god, CenturyLink can shove it. You know what? Midco, love you. Walked in. There's a hard Canadian accent up here because we are about 2 hours from the Canadian border. And she's about. I absolutely love it. Nicest woman I've ever.
What's crazy is you almost just sounded like you said about, and now I'm wondering if it's already rubbing out on you.
No, I said that on purpose. About. I said.
Okay. When you said it leading in, it's still. But I didn't realize you were just peppering it in so well.
No, I peppered a boot. Yeah, no, I love it. I absolutely love it. It's a whole new accent for me to get used to. I absolutely love it. All right. For Josh, Ryan, and myself, you can follow Club Fantasy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Club Fantasy FFL. The URL is clubfantasyffl.com. Next week with Jason Moore from the Fantasy Footballers previewing quarterbacks in free agency. Is there anything I'm missing, gents?
So we're going to launch the Speakeasy tomorrow, right, Joe?
Yes. We are going to launch
Faith and Linda, and there's a big announcement, so please stay to the very end. It's like a Marvel movie. All the good shit happens at the end.
That's where they get you. They keep you in your seat for 2.5 hours, and they're like, the last 10 minutes is where we're really going to get into all the fun stuff. But we're not like that. Don't worry. There's plenty of fun throughout the entire episode. Speakeasy episode 3 going to drop tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. That's on our YouTube page. If you haven't subscribed already, just head over. On our YouTube, we're Club Fantasy FFL on there. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. You can hit the notification bell as well for every time we go live as well. Always remember, defense wins championships. Offense wins fantasy football. We will see you next week with Jason Moore of the Fantasy Footballers.